Welcome to the Manuchehri podcast. Over the last 30 years, it has been my joy to assist humanity in aligning with their magnificence so they may heal, discover their natural gifts, and communicate with loved ones living on the other side. May you also experience delight while we dance in the powerful, intuitive world of energy. Let's get going. Welcome to where energy meets the divine. I'm your host, Manuchehri. Before we go to the phone lines, and for those of you who are just listening for the first time, welcome. And if you want me to answer a question for you, you can just venture over to energyintuitive.com or mariemanuchehri.com. Click the podcast page, and there's instructions on how to leave me a voicemail message, which I play here live when I'm making the podcast, and give an answer, which is really exciting. But before we do that, I wanted to talk about how to get through some sticky kind of situations in one's life. I think it would be important for everyone to consider having a psychic journal. It could be a bunch of pieces of paper that you stapled or clipped together. It doesn't have to be an actual journal. The one I'm currently using right now, someone sent it to me in the mail. It was very kind. Soul Trees Journal. As you feel inspired, it says on the back, by Allison Williams. So thank you, Allison. It's very kind of you. And I would write on like the inside cover, psychic journal. Even if you don't think you're intuitive, I would still do that because intuition comes through often, but a lot of people don't grasp it or take note of it like professional intuitives do, because we're constant in a state of awareness and we're pulling information in all the time for us. But anyone can do it. Anyone can receive psychic information, and the universe is always doing its very best to help us. That's what it absolutely, positively wants to do all the time, is assist us. That's it. It wants to assist. So you have your psychic journal. Keep it someplace where you could readily grab it during the day. And I'm just going to give a couple examples of how you could use it, or where some people might have some tricky spots in their life where the universe is daily, maybe hourly, offering a solution, a remedy. And in this solution, I don't want you to go, oh, that's it, when something flies in. I don't want you to go, oh, that's it, I'm going to do that. I want you to stay open and curious, because humans have so many layers of logical thinking. It can take a while to break through to get to the real beautiful blossom of a solution that will be the most effective. So psychic journaling, at least in this case, is about moving through those layers. Like you'll have one idea, and just because you opened up to that idea, the universe knows now you will be open to the next idea that's adjacent to that one. And it's just going to keep blossoming and blossoming and blossoming. So here's an example. One of the things that I think is really weird, I know it's around the world, but I'm just going to focus on the US because that's where I live. We have so many kids on attention deficit disorder medication, kids diagnosed in varying stages of autism. I mean, a lot. It's like every day, I'm sure every day lots of kids are diagnosed with these interesting diagnoses, which I think most of them aren't even real. I don't think they're real diagnoses. I don't think they really exist. I think we have a lot of kids who have progressed past our old way of teaching. They're intelligent, brilliant souls. They don't want to sit in desks all day long and not be outside playing or having a lot of physical activity while they learn. So there's nothing wrong with kids, the majority of them, and there's nothing wrong with anyone, of course. It's not that they need to be medicated so they can do old things, like sitting down, being very upright in a chair and learn the same way that everybody else is learning. Think about it. When my parents were young, when my grandparents were young, when my great-grandparents were young, when kids went to school, they also had busy lives at home. A lot of people were farmers. And so kids were up early in the morning, taking care of whatever needed to be done with the farm or other house chores. Kids used to do a lot of chores. And I think school was a time for them to rest and then help to grow their brain or expand their knowledge. Well, now kids don't have a lot of chores, most of them. quite frankly. And they're not up at the crack of dawn collecting eggs from the hen or milking a cow. They're resting. Someone's making them their breakfast. Someone's helping them with their backpack. Someone's packing them their lunch. And they're going off to school and they're bored, sitting in a chair. They don't have enough physical activity. I think most kids don't. And then we want them to sit in these chairs. But regardless of the reason, because that doesn't really matter, I believe the majority of these diagnoses are inaccurate. I think this is old school diagnosing, and there's nothing wrong with kids, and our educational system needs to learn to be flexible and has to offer a lot of unique remedies because human beings are becoming unique. That's what we want. We want that for them. So we can't expect everyone to learn exactly the same way in the same timeline. That's ridiculous. Some kids are not going to want to learn to read until they're 8 because they'd rather do other things. They'd rather absorb information. They'd rather watch. They're so enamored by what's going around in the world that they're not interested in learning their ABCs or 1 plus 1. They're not interested. So if you have a kid like that at home, which you could, there are so many, again, misdiagnosed the majority of the time. And I think whenever we have to put our kids on medication to get them to act like everybody else, that's a ding, 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 ding. We're having a world problem, not a child problem, not a vaccine problem that's creating all these other issues. No, we're having a world problem where an institution within our country is not evolving as fast as the human beings. It's kind of like, all this may seem like a weird example. We have a bunch of people in prisons in the United States that have been arrested for, let's say, marijuana drug use. And even though the feds have not made marijuana legal, many states have. So we have people rotting in jails who are arrested for drugs that we now think are legal for the most part in a majority of the United States, or a fair amount of states in the United States. So the prison system hasn't caught up to the evolution of the human species that's like, now we have mom and pop stores all over certain states selling marijuana legally. Fascinating. So it's also like this in many areas of our life where a certain aspect, like maybe it's the legal system or the medical system, has not evolved as fast as humans have evolved. And so their answers and solutions don't work because the human being has evolved beyond the institution. So if you have a psychic journal, because the universe knows how to help you. It doesn't matter if you have a health issue and you've been working with the medical system and you're not getting what you want. That doesn't mean solutions don't exist. They're just going to be different. They're going to be in different places. Speaking of marijuana, one of my favorite documentaries, and I'll find a link for it for you, I promise. One of my assistants will help me do that. It has to do with giving children who have brain tumors or other forms of cancers some THC. And it makes in a lot of the research that's been done, and most of it in California, I believe, at certain universities, has had enormous and positive effect on their healing. And of course, when they're doing research, they're going to pick the sickest of the sickest. That's what they do with clinical trials and research in the United States. They pick those that have the most complicated illnesses that have already failed current modern medicine remedies. And so the THC, which comes from the marijuana plant, is actually being very helpful. But that's outside of the box. Like, people have to fly in sometimes to California with their family members to be able to figure out the process, the amounts, how it's formulated, because it could be formulated different for different kids, so that they can see a change. Okay, so back to the psychic journal. You've got a psychic journal, which could be a bunch of pieces of paper stapled together. And let's say you're in the house, maybe you're changing light bulbs, you've noticed there's a few out and you've got the ladder out and you're going to change them, or maybe you're unloading the dishwasher, maybe you're in the backyard playing with your dog, maybe you just finished an errand, like filling up the car with gas. But whatever it is, most likely when you're doing a task that doesn't require a lot of mental gymnastics, something fairly easy and mundane, that's a really good time when you'll get inspired. And the universe knows this about us, knows when there's openings in our thinking where we could absorb information. And I think sometimes when we're in this place, we just don't pay attention. But yet, those are the magical moments. And remember what I said, it could come in layers. So let's say, you or someone has a kid who's been struggling. They've now been tested. Their doctors want to put them on medication, or they already are on medication. And I'm not blaming parents, by the way. No, I mean, a lot of people don't know because they're not listening to their intuition, what's in the best interest for humanity or for their own family members or themselves, right? So you're, playing in the backyard with the dog, or you're gardening. It's almost summer here in the US. And so gardening is definitely happening. And you had a kiddo who's having a hard time at school. And all of a sudden you hear something in your head. And probably you in the past haven't paid much attention to it. Like, why am I thinking that? I got to get this weed out of the ground. But I want you to start capturing these phrases, this language, this information. I want you to start capturing it so that you can begin to feel, understand, see the solutions that are available. Because I promise you, to every problem that there is in the universe, there are solutions. And the majority of the solutions you will love. They will make you very, very, very happy. They will delight you. They will set your soul on fire. They will be remarkable, especially when the modern aspects of life, these institutions that have not evolved, like the human race is evolving. Human race usually evolves much faster than institutions. Think about police force and legal systems. They're so chaotic and cuckoo in many cases. I mean, even our prison system, we just put a whole bunch of people in these huge facilities that are violent, that don't have good food, that are really expensive, by the way. We pay a lot of money to put a bunch of people together who are, experiencing threats and terrible food and all kinds of circumstances that don't really help people to improve or at least keep the population safe. At any rate, that's a whole another story, right? So you're in the garden. You've decided to let the weed sit there for a moment, like, kind of feel like I can feel something. I feel calm. I feel relaxed. Maybe you're hearing the rustling of trees. Maybe you're hearing wind in the background or splashes of water if you're near the water. Maybe you're hearing a frog cricket. Maybe you're just feeling a warm, tingling sensation in your body. Maybe all of a sudden you have an essence of the presence of someone that you love that's crossed over, but something has caught your attention. It could be very simple. So I want you to start catching those moments, even if you're not sure if it's a moment. You're not going to do anything. You're just going to become present, which I promise you is very powerful. So you've caught a moment, and you might even hear homeschool. Now, I can tell you, if I heard the term or the words homeschool when I was gardening, when my kids were young, I would have not been happy. That did not sound like fun to me. I would have definitely had to hire people to help me educate my kids if they required homeschooling. Luckily, my kids did not require that or need it. At least at this point in time, I still don't believe they did. But let's say that you would even have a response, because a lot of people, when they get intuitive impressions, their logical mind kicks in and goes, has a reaction. It kicks it out. It puts it under arrest, sends it to that prison that we were talking to. And that's not the intuitive process. The intuitive process is to be open. So you're sitting there, you decided not to pull out the weed, you felt this warmth in your tummy, you got grounded. Maybe you have your psychic journal next to you, or you can run in and go grab it. And you heard, felt, had an awareness, an understanding of homeschool. Maybe you even had a memory of some friends of yours who homeschooled their own children, or, a neighbor who did. And then you're going to write down homeschool, and you're not going to freak out, right? You're going to go, because you're just beginning the blossoming process of moving into supreme solutions. And then you can go back to gardening, taking out more weeds. You may hear the term again, homeschool, and don't think it's your mind, because your mind won't surprise you. The mind just keeps outputting stuff we already know, basically. It's not the surprise part is an intuitive aspect, right? And you sit there and then you might hear, like homeschooling. You're like, huh, interesting. And then maybe you go get a wheelbarrow, or you take your leaves to, the recycling that you have for your property, or maybe you have a compost pile in the backyard and you're pulling it there. And then all of a sudden you hear or see or feel or remember small schools like homeschooling. Okay, so now I would say, although this could continue on because the universe is just waiting and waiting for you to have a moment of presence where it can plop. I didn't make that sound effect very well. Yeah, it can plop information into your awareness that hopefully you won't throw off and send to prison. That you go in and get your psychic journal and make a little note about it. Okay. And so now you've got enough information, like, huh. And this doesn't mean you have to do anything. You don't have to grab your kid out of school, start homeschooling or looking for a homeschool. You don't have to do anything because the universe is going to continue to assist you, especially if you stay out of fight or flight, like, oh, gotta get that kid out of school. No, just relax. Just relax. It's coming to you. You're on the right track. So what I would do, a small school like a homeschool, I would be curious about that. I would get very curious about that. I would maybe, when my energy is elevated as well, Google it. Small like homeschool schools in my area. I would just Google it because the universe is giving you enough information and it knows that this information it's giving you will help you get to the solution. The universe doesn't get information that you can't get solutions for. You've reached a nice part of the blossoming so that you can get information on your own. And this can be done about any topic that's going on in your life. But I want you to also realize when doctors tell you certain things like attention deficit disorder or they're on the spectrum, I want you to be open to the fact that that may not be the whole story. Could be what we're calling it today, which I'm calling it, we're forcing evolved people to sit in chairs all day who don't want to learn that way anymore. I think kids should be hanging upside down from tree branches while they learn math. I do. I think they would do a great job with it. I think they'd have so much more fun. I do. I think they would have a blast. So the same is true if you get a medical diagnosis and you don't like it and you don't like the choices, because it's different. Where homeschooling could offer the best decision, but you would be thrilled about it. You'd be excited about it. You would, if I had heard that 20 years ago, I would be, because that would not be fun for me. But if you get excited about something that has already been created in mass consciousness, through medication, let's say, then that would be perfect for you to try. And so some people who have very holistic perceptions and don't want to look at any form of modern medicine, they also need to be open to modern medicine. You want to be open to everything. That's what I'm really getting to, is you do not want to have a perceived idea in your head that's going to limit you when you're looking for a solution. You want to be open, as if you were just freshly born on the planet and you know nothing about Earth whatsoever, but you're curious and you want to learn. Can you move in that bubble? Can you move in that frequency? Can you move in that vibration and not let your logical mind, who has all these opinions and ideas, especially if they're negative, to take over? Let it sit down. That you can send to jail. You can send the logical part of your mind that thinks it has an accurate opinion about everything. Send that to jail. Just go lock it up. And of course, be nice to yourself in the process. Okay, psychic journal. Highly recommended. Okay, and now I'm going to go on to questions. So as I said before, people write in questions and I answer them. Okay.
Hello, Marie. Greetings from Louisiana. I am a nurse as well, so thank you for all you've done in the field of nursing and what you are doing now. My situation is in my bedroom. Same wall as my headboard. There are two lights, maybe half the size of your pointer finger. They're parallel. just two lights on the wall. You can only see them when the lights are off at night. They don't show up in the day, only at night when the lights are off. The opposite wall has nothing on it where it can be a reflection. So I know it's not a reflection. It's been there maybe a year or so, maybe over a year. Just one night I noticed them. And they don't move, don't do anything. They're just there. So I would definitely like to know what or who that is.
Yeah.
Also, if you see or feel anything in my energy, I'm open to all suggestions. Thank you and blessings to you.
Thank you, Pia. Blessings to you too, and thank you for your nursing work as well. Such an honor to work with other human beings, right? In whatever capacity. So my first question is to you, and of course I hope they're living, but are your parents deceased? Because these little lights feel like guardian angels. They're beacons of hope for you. And overall, regardless of who these beings are, so if they're not your parents, again, I hope they're fully living. They could be other family members that acted like parents. They could be guardian angels, but most importantly, what the universe wants, because you've asked. You've asked to evolve. You've asked to have more multisensory experiences. And it's great you see the lights, but you're not interacting with them. Just kind of like how I talked about the psychic journal. It's an interaction, where you consciously connect and interact with it. So start talking to those lights. Go, hey, how's it going? Got any information for me? And then take your energy. And I know this for some reason sounds very confusing to a lot of people, but your energy is yours. Your body is yours. It's your temple that's holding your energy. But what helps people to have more of a psychic connection, that's why when we're doing tasks that don't require a lot of mental acuity, we can have multisensory experiences. So you could be staring at these lights because that could be a nice distraction for you. Maybe while you're wiggling your toes, feeling the weight of the blanket on your body, because that's going to help release energy from your brain. And then start interacting with the lights. Get curious about them as if they are, because you believe they are, and I believe they are, beacons of profound experiences for you. That's what I think. And that's exciting. That's very exciting. So play with them. They want you to. They're inviting you. They're waiting happily. They're waiting for you. Okay, thank you.
Hi, Marie. My name's Kathy. I'm calling from Southern California. I'm hoping for a mediumship reading. My mom passed away 4 months ago. She was an amazing person,
Oh.
childhood polio survivor. She was paralyzed with that for 2 years when she was young, but led a normal life, walked, had 3 children. I'm the youngest of 3. She outlived 3 husbands. A very strong, amazing woman. Anyway, I moved her to be closer to me about 15 years ago. I've been her, primary care person, and some events that led up to her passing were pretty amazing. The first was I woke up one morning from a lucid dream, and she was, her higher self, I guess you'd call it, was at the foot of my bed. Her energy filled the room. It was enormous, bright light. And the voice that I heard in my mind from her said, "It's not your fault." Of course, I didn't know what that meant at the time. But I instantly asked, why would you choose such a life full of, challenges and suffering and pain? And the answer was an instant download of just knowing. And her energy was just such pure love, and she felt extremely highly advanced. And what I noticed was the gold flecks in her aura. The next thing was the camera recorded these lights in her room. I'm wondering if those were loved ones on the other side visiting. She had a moment of clarity where she stopped me and just kissed the side of my cheek.
Aw.
And she just felt so full of love and joy and out of
Yeah.
pain.
Yeah.
And then also towards the end, she stopped in another moment of clarity and she said, somebody wants to send Kathy love. So I'm just curious as to who that message was from and who of our loved ones on the other side were helping her to cross over, and any message that she or any of my loved ones on the other side might have for me. Thank you so much. Love your show. Thank you for all you do. Blessings.
You're welcome, Kathy, and thank you for leaving your voicemail. I'm sorry about your mom's passing, but it sounds delightful. That was an actual visit. I think your mother had more evolution in her consciousness than she realized. And sometimes when your body starts to get free of energy, you have like this memory and this awareness of before she's even crossed about, oh man, there's a lot more going on than I realized there was. She did say to me, your mother, while you were telling your story, or while I was listening to your story, that she doesn't really have any regrets, but kind of like, why did I get married? Obviously children were a good reason for that, but your mom says women don't have to marry. It's not necessary. It is unnecessary. I couldn't agree with her more, by the way. I even told all my daughters when they were in college or maybe before college, you never have to get married and you don't have to have children unless you absolutely want to. I just wanted them to have the freedom to have kids if they want to, be married if they want to, or not be married and have kids, or never be married and have no children. I wanted them to have the freedom, that there was no expectation on my part. Yeah, having kids is a lot, being married is a lot. So yeah, that's the one thing I heard her say, which is interesting. So that was a true visitation that was happening. It wasn't a dream. It was your mother visiting you. And the gold flecks are an indicator of the seventh layer of her auric field, the individualization, feeling our connection to God, our natural mastery of self. There were a lot of people at your mom's bedside because, and I mean, people have crossed over, because there were a lot of circumstances that occurred that seemed unfair, where people betrayed her and lied to her or were unkind to her from early on in childhood, not just, in some of her relationships. And your mother was working on how to get away from victim consciousness, right? Because sometimes we have this vibration. We always have a vibration of something we want to change the perception about. So, sometimes we have this vibration and we come to Earth because we want to change the vibration. We want to have a different perception. Because I think even being married 3 times and going, oh, yeah, whatever, I don't need a partner, could be a healing in itself. Because a lot of people repartner because they think they have to, or there's something wrong with them if they're single, which is not true. It's not true. So a lot of beings, so many. If your father's over there, because I don't know which husband it was, definitely at the bedside, but a lot of people from her family line and childhood and relationships were all there. They said because they wanted her to see the bigger picture of all their experiences. She was already getting that bigger picture before she left her body, but it was nice to have that validation and to rejoin energies in a completely different belief system. It's kind of like when, if anyone who's listening, or you yourself, Kathy, have gone to like a high school reunion, and maybe there was someone in school that you didn't like, or they weren't nice to you, or you weren't nice to them, or whatever the scenario was. And you meet again, decade or decades later, you're very different people and you have a different experience. It's like that for your mom. And that's what all the orbs were. What does your family say for you? All of those on the other side. They just want you to be happy. Time on earth goes quickly, and then you'll be in a different reality. So just be happy. Not be happy by making everybody else okay, but figure out how to make Kathy happy, even if everybody else is not happy. That's probably the true, authentic description of true happiness is, especially for empathic people. Empathic people are always waiting until everyone's okay, everyone's having it. I mean, that's never going to happen. Ever. Ever. Okay. Thank you. Great question.
Hi Marie, it's Ruth here. Thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity to engage with you in your very beautiful energy. So a couple of years ago, my mom was doing research on her side of the family, and she found out about my fourth great grandmother, who apparently lived on a very remote island. This ancestor was born around the 18th century and died in the 19th century. And I have become so fascinated with this woman who was initially completely unknown to us. I've since carried on with the research that my mom was doing about her and where she lived, and I visited the island a couple of times myself. Much to my delight, this ancestor has reached out to me through a couple of spirit mediums, and she has spoken with me directly when I've done a dedicated tarot reading for myself.
Nice.
So I would love to know if she and I ever lived in the same lifetime together in whatever capacity, and if she has a particular message for me that she would like to share with me through you. Also, in one of my sessions with a medium, this same ancestor said to me that if I ever wanted to become a medium, I need to learn how to block negative energy more. And at that point, it seemed quite a strange comment because, at least on a conscious level, I had no idea that this is what I wanted. I hadn't really thought about it. But it's something that I'm very intrigued by since then. So if you are able to expand on any of this and to tap into anything about her relationship with me, or anything she would like to share with me, I would be most grateful. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Ruth. What a great question. And yes, and you know what? A lot of people ask me this question, maybe not as far back. They don't go as far back as you did in terms of generations. Maybe if they did, I would have a different answer. Because I even think that a lot of the people that we're having a current lifetime with, unless there's such an incredible bond, because sometimes incredible bonds come from feeling safe with someone who you felt safe with in a previous lifetime and you just gelled and right. But a lot of people don't have that, even in their closest relatives. So I don't really think that there's a lot of people who are interacting with people from their previous lifetimes, even though a lot of people think so, especially with their difficult relationships. They really think that. I don't think that at all. I think there's so many souls that have the same problems or belief systems or patterns, and we can come together to help heal each other, even if that means we don't maintain long-term relationships or friendships. But someone can be a catalyst for us to change our perception. Anyway, slightly got off track there. But yes, you guys had a lifetime in Egypt. In Egypt. And it's interesting because you don't look Egyptian to me. Both of you were in the mystery schools. So whether you were British people who, were helping to take over part of, the country, I don't know. But you were both students and teachers in Egyptian mystery schools. So the Egyptian mystery schools existed a long time ago. And when they were schools, which maybe they still are from time to time, whether that's true of human beings or other entities, they're just powerful vortexes of light and knowledge. So it's a great place to be a mystery school. You were both women. I don't know if you were the grandmother in that lifetime or the mother or an aunt or just an acquaintance, but you were very close to each other. One of you came in when one of you was an infant and the other one of you was an adult, but I can't tell who was who because it kind of doesn't matter, right? Like sometimes the human mind thinks that these certain characteristics matter, but they don't at all. They don't matter. And you were both white. You were not Middle Eastern. You weren't black or you didn't have brown coloring. You had light hair. Yeah, you felt very British to me. So I'm not sure how you got there. And the mystery schools went like this. Children were taken or asked by mystery school teachers if they could be taken who showed signs of psychic ability. So mystery school teachers probably went in other places besides Egypt, right? These were skilled, trained metaphysical teachers who would go out to villages, and when a birth had been, when a birth had happened and there had been telltale signs of a psychic child, the mystery school teachers would go to validate that. And if indeed that were true, they asked the parents if they can take the child when they're about 1, maybe 6 months, anywhere between that time and the age of 2, which I know would be very traumatic, but perhaps the villages didn't have enough food. Who knows what the circumstances were, because people would surrender their children. Not everybody, but a fair amount. Maybe it was considered an honor, like it used to be. And I say used to be because I'm sure some families would disagree with me. Well, it used to be an honor if your daughter became a nun and married God. Weird. Or became a priest and I guess not married God. I don't know. But that was honorable, right? That was honorable. So the mystery school teachers would then educate these children at night. So nobody needed to know where the mystery schools were, because during that time period, psychics were commodities. Royalty, people with wealth, armies used psychics for information to be successful, even if they're using that information in negative ways. Psychics were well desired throughout the world. And so the mystery schools, they wouldn't educate them to do deceptive things, but they knew that that could happen to a graduate of theirs if they decided to leave the property and work for a king, because not all royalty did things as they still, any leader in any country still doesn't do things 100% about thinking about what's in the best interest of the people. I mean, right? It's politics. So the kids would stay there for their entire childhood learning mysticism. They would sleep it during the day and they would at night learn. And you two knew each other during that time. Whoever was the baby grew up and stayed in the mystery school and became a teacher. So that could have been what brought you so close together, is that both of you became teachers. And again, I don't know who is who because it doesn't really matter. So you were very close friends and you both love the occult. So it makes sense to me that she's visiting you and you feel this connection to her, because the universe is asking you again to move into the occult. I wouldn't think of what that person told you about negative energy. I would just think about high frequency and low frequency. Everything that we want exists in high frequency. Everything we don't want exists in low frequency. Even when I get in the car to take Charles for a walk outside of my neighborhood, because we walk every day, twice a day. So there are times I want to go someplace else, even though we have a lovely neighborhood. And I just feel, where do I want to go? I let my energy make the decision, not my logical mind. And then I just have the best time ever, have the best sightings in wilderness, the best experiences with other people walking or riding their bikes. So yeah, that's all I've got to say. I would just explore, maybe do some tarot for people since you love it. And I want to thank everyone for listening to the show. It's been and continues to be a joy for this offering. Thank you for your questions. Have a beautiful day. I'm recording this on May 30th in the Pacific Northwest. Bye-bye for now.